pick the right tools, pick where you want to excel. And obviously, that comes from me. Take it with a grain of salt. If you're in the bioreactor space, focus on the data you get there because this is super important for the health and the growth of your cells. And then again, leverage the next technologies like AI with someone like DataHow. So I think that is the key. Don't do anything or everything, on your own.
Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive with Simon Wieninger. If you're just joining us, you are in for a treat. We're about to unpack the practical side of digital transformation in bioprocessing, from cloud adoption to data security concerns. Simon's sharing real examples of how labs are revolutionizing their workflows through smart digitalization. Simon is sharing real examples of how labs are revolutionizing their workflows through smart digitalization. Let's jump right back in. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brühlmann, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. As you were developing your cloud solution, I imagine you had a lot of conversations with potential customers, you developed it and so on. Can you tell us what are the tangible benefits that arise from implementing all these digital tools, your cloud, your automation, real-time monitoring, and so on?
That was one of the hardest aspects of also, let's say, convincing our sponsors within the company to set something like this up, because it's not that easy to come up with a true, tangible values. We all know and we have a feeling that there's a need for something like cloud and data technologies, but it was really hard to put this into perspective. And as you said, our number one goal was always doing it together with our customers. So we've basically from day one included customers from the industry, also our own applications lab. So the one thing that is maybe one that is really dear to the customer is always know how your cultivation is doing. So with our cloud technology, you can now access the data basically from everywhere. You can do it via phone, via tablet, via laptop, wherever. So I've actually talked to customers now who walk on a Sunday, evening or so in the park with their dog. They're walking their dog out there and they just check how their cultivation is doing, right? A couple of years ago, they would have need to drive into the lab, check everything is right. And they knew everything was right because, our equipment should take care of that. But there's always that little man in your head who tells you, maybe I forgot something, maybe this. And you just check it now and everything is fine. So, and that just gives you this peace of mind, I want to say. So that is one aspect that is, I think, very obvious and that we implemented one of the first things. The other thing is we all know the term of the golden batch. So really comparing your data between different scales, between different time points, aligning them and really see how your cultivations are deviating from each other or not in the best case. So with technologies like this, we implemented in a way that you can now compare the data from a 250 milliliter bioreactor to a 10 liter, to a 50 liter, to 1,000 liter if you want to. And if the cultivations are 1 day apart or 2 years apart, it just doesn't matter anymore. So we come back to the harmonization part. Have everything in one place and make sure you can easily do those comparisons. And I think that is very important. That's really something that was missing. And I'm really proud that we put something out that gives this value. A third thing is really transforming the data. I always said from the beginning, we are not going to rebuild Excel. I know how prevalent Excel is in every lab, but I'm not so keen to say, let's rebuild this. That is a bit too complicated, and I also don't think this is necessary.
No, Excel, please.
No, exactly. But we are looking at what are our customers actually doing with it, right? For example, calculating growth rates, one of the classical things you do based on the data you get either out of your offline values or from your bioreactor directly. So we give very easy calculations to get to the growth rate, actually. So look into what is really being done in the laboratory and then optimize this. So I think those are pretty good examples. And I think I have one last one because you actually mentioned that before, where you said, okay, sharing data between different labs. So we have, I obviously cannot name them, but we have one customer. They are a biotech company and they basically brought in their CDMO. So they're located in the US and their CDMO is located in Germany. And they're using our cloud technologies because both bioreactors that they're running on the one side at the customer space, on the other side at the CMO space, they're now feeding into the same clouds. And both can see the data of what's being created in real time, talk about it, share the data, and analyze it actually together in one place without sending around Excel files, without being sure if that's the right data or not. And yeah, I think that was a aha moment for me because, as always, I have that thing in mind from the beginning. But since I delved more into it, I saw those use cases and I just got excited about them. So this is really cool when you can share data between sites. And this example is just between even two companies. I think that is the most complex thing. But imagine one of those big companies. You have a site in Singapore and you have one site in, I don't know, Helsinki. And now everything is connected. That's, I think, one of those great benefits.
It's all about putting in place the right systems. And I definitely, from my experience, I see the benefit of seeing real-time data from different sites and making sure that people connect with each other, because I've been in some projects where it was two different silos and it was difficult to communicate and we didn't even speak the same language, like the same technical language between two sites, which makes it very difficult.
Can I ask a question to you? Do you feel that the industry is striving for this, let's say, the harmonization between the labs, between the sites? So as you said, I've encountered the same, right? They sometimes speak, let's say, even different languages. But do you see, let's say, that we are at a point where they really try to align this, or is it a bit away now?
It's hard to give you like a statistically relevant answer. What I can say, though, is I've seen different companies manage it. And I would say those companies I have seen, yes, they put effort into doing that, exactly that, and harmonizing as much as possible the language. The names of like a viable cell density, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have two different names at two different sites. It should be the same name. And you should have the same system and so on. And I think that's, from my perspective, the go-to solution, because if you can share data, if you can leverage the potential of your data, that's where you're going to find better solutions, you're going to make better decisions, and you're going to save money at the end of the day.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Can we take this a step further? Because yes, it absolutely makes sense to do this on a bioreactor scale or on a production scale. Where do you see this going in the future? Also looking again at what other industries are doing and what are the trends also in our industry, to link that with inventory, to link that, why not with clinical trials, for instance, in the cell and gene therapy, like, or not clinical trials, but like clinical outcomes, for instance, as you're going to inject stem cells into your patient and link that with your production data, for instance.
That's a great example. I think this is also where those technologies will be key, actually. So if you want to be successful with exactly those new modalities and the new therapies that are being developed, we need to look way more into the data, because I think the CQA aspect of everything is just way more important. And I think we had this point in the beginning a bit, since the cell is the product, the data and the information about the cell and, let's say, the cell fitness, as we always say, is way more relevant. And so basically, from your R&D data up to your PD, up to your production, and as you said, even to production, that shall be linked to all the data from your therapy that is even being maybe given to your patients. That is a big task, I'm not going to lie. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm going to give you one example that where I think which shows that we're actually not that far away. When we started developing our product, I was looking into all the big pharma companies on how they handle data in the context of clouds. And I found multiple examples where they actually already put clinical trial data in cloud products. They managed most of them on their own, but they put it on the cloud. And that gave me also the confidence that if big pharma is already there and is using the cloud, especially for clinical trial data, which is, I think, the most important data those companies have, then I don't see a reason why they shouldn't put also bioreactor data on there. Then the next step is just connecting it.
And shall I say, these are probably the most sensitive data from an ethical point of view.
Absolutely. And then we're to your point again, if we trust the banks with sending money around, right, then obviously big pharma can trust the big tech companies about the security of the data there. So I think it's a great point. And I think I'm with you. That's the next step, especially in the CGT field, because we need to make this connection basically from the cell to the patient.
And what is your take on the company size, especially now in the cell and gene therapy space? We have a lot of startups, smaller companies that might be still on the fence of adapting automation or digital tools. Definitely, it's still more manual, more paper-driven. What would you tell a listener who is now from that space? Like, where should they start and how should they leverage digital technologies?
So the first thing would be, don't implement everything that everyone wants to sell you. I think that's quite obvious. You have to pick the right tools, I think, and really think about where you can create the most value, right? So I think obviously I can talk a bit more about our customers because they're normally in the space where they leave 2D behind and they really want to now go look into that more PD space on actually the 3D aspect. And this is when they transition into bioreactor. And we come to the discussion we had earlier. Focus then on what's important for you. And again, use those technologies. Don't try to do everything on your own because that is just not going to happen. I think one of the aspects I circle back a bit on the security part. Again, I analyzed what are the most used cloud technologies in the space. And it's not a surprise. It's Microsoft, it's Amazon, and also a bit of Google, I want to say. And those are the best companies to build cloud products. This is why we chose Microsoft as our provider and built our solution based on that. So we get all the security, all the technology from Microsoft, and we build up on that, and we basically tailor it to an application that is focused on the scientist. If you're trying to rebuild this on your own, you're actually diverting from what you can do best, and I think that is the biology. So really pick the right tools, pick where you want to excel, and obviously that comes from me, take it with a grain of salt. If you're in the bioreactor space, focus on the data you get there because this is super important for the health and the growth of your cells. And then again, leverage the next technologies like AI with someone like DataHow. So I think that is the key. Don't do anything or everything, on your own.
So don't do everything. Focus on what's bringing you the most value. Simon, with all that we have discussed today as we're wrapping up, what is the most important takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think focus on biology. Don't worry too much about the technologies. I think we've got you covered. There are experts out there who basically dedicate their working time to create solutions that really help you. And it is truly my thinking and my belief that the scientists in the lab, those are such great people. They have such much dedication and they have so much knowledge. And they shouldn't worry too much, again, about the technologies, the devices that they use. Because, again, this is what we are there for. So it's about that. Focus on what you're best at. And I think that is the biology part. This is the scale-up part, whatever your job is in the lab, obviously. But if you're around the lab, really focus on that. And again, David, I think the two and I can agree, it's the slow but steady approach, and which is fine. That there's nothing bad to it. It brought us where we are right now, and it will bring us further. So yeah, I think that is my takeaway from the discussion with you.
Fantastic, Simon. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your expertise. Where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, obviously LinkedIn. So you can look up my name there, Simon Wieninger or Simon Wieninger. You can also email me, which is basically my last name .s@eppendorf.de. I think, David, probably you're going to provide this also to the people out there. And also, obviously, if you see me at conferences, just talk to me, and looking forward to it. Thank you so much. And thank you, David, for having me. It was a great time. It was a great conversation. I love your insights, and I really like this podcast, this format. It's awesome.
Yeah, awesome, Simon. It was a huge pleasure to finally have this conversation also on a podcast, not only at conferences. Smart biotech scientists, please reach out to Simon, use that opportunity, chat with him. He loves to interact with you, so use that. And yeah, thank you once again for being on the show today.
Thank you.
And there you have it, fellow biotech scientists. A huge thank you to Simon Wieninger for sharing these incredible insights about the future of digital bioprocessing. Remember, transformation doesn't happen overnight, but small steps lead to big changes. Speaking of transformation, if you are looking to accelerate your biologics development journey, I offer strategic guidance as a fractional CTO. Ready to fast-track your path to market with expert support? Visit BrühlmannConsulting.com to schedule your free consultation call. Until next time, keep innovating smartly. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.